Are you tired of painting green? Well, I'm sick of it. No, not really, okay. I love green, I really do, but sometimes you just need to do something a little bit different. And a good rule of thumb if you want to create something unique is just imagine whatever environment you want to work with, and the first thing that comes to mind, just do anything but that. So when I picked up a couple jungle bases that I had lying around, I was just trying to think of what's the one kind of take on jungle that I'd never seen before. And the answer was yellow. I'm sure it's out there, I'm sure it's been done before, but I hadn't seen one. So I thought it'd be a fun one to explore. Try to just like bring some fall time vibes into that hot, steamy mess of foliage. You ever sipped a pumpkin spice latte in the heart of the jungle? Well, maybe we can make that dream come true for your miniatures. But before we get into it, please make sure to hit that subscribe button and share this with a friend who's looking for some new basing ideas. All right, let's go make it epic. You already know we gotta start things off with our landscaping process, which of course works with our Magic Sculpt putty, which we're gonna be taking and smearing a thin layer across the whole surface of our base. And then we're gonna take some more Magic Sculpt and build it up a bit more towards the back so that it's not all flat and even. My first cluster of detail is going to be these snake plants. I'm putting a couple of them together because they're going to be the tallest thing on this base, and then I'm going to surround them with these little mossy rocks. The foreground is getting some Bromeliads, and at the back I'm going to be placing our Monstera plants, underneath which I'm going to sneak in a little cast iron plant too. On the side I'm just clearing a little bit of space for another mossy rock, and I really love these for just obscuring the contact point of some of the larger plants and helping them create a more subtle transition into the rest of the base. Now these little bits of putty that you see me putting down increase the texture of the groundwork, and if you decide to dilute your texture paint a little bit, you can create some really interesting effects with what you allow to show through. Also just sculpting a little rock here to fill that empty space next to my Bromeliad. Now let's texture paint away, so I'm just putting a clump down on the base, and then you can see that I'm going to wet my brush so that I can begin diluting it and spreading it a little bit more easily. Also again, wet brush will help you to clean up any of the edges that you might miss. And there we go, a nice dense jungle base with a lot of layers and a lot of variety. Okay, so the thing with a scheme like this is that even though we want to make that one color shine, we can't just paint everything yellow. We're gonna need to find some stuff to break it up a little bit. Now, a couple of tricks that you can do is just to find some colors that are adjacent to your main color. So in our case with yellow, we could either go towards orange or go towards green. And I'm probably gonna do a little bit of both. Okay, that's gonna be creating a subtle contrast, which is gonna create a little bit of variety, but not take too much away from the intensity of that yellow. Okay, the other thing that we can do is pair it with something that is more opposite to it, something like a blue or a purple. Now that's normally going to create a much stronger contrast, but in this case again, since we don't want it to pull too much attention, I'm going to make sure that this one stays fairly subdued, and I'm going to keep the saturation low on it so that it doesn't attract too much attention. All right, let's dive in and see how this scheme comes together. Let's kick things off with a coat of black primer. So using the airbrush here to apply it, of course, and just making sure that we cover all the resin, all the texture paint, just get a nice coat of black, and then we can apply our white over top. Now the first color I'm applying here is going to be like a burnt orange, which is actually going to be my shadow color, and then I applied the yellow over top, but I kind of did mess this up because the first time around I left too much of the black showing through, which made the yellow kind of ugly. So I had to go back and reapply the shadow and then spray the yellow over top again, and I think this second time the result turned out much nicer. Now on to the hand painting. I'm starting with raw umber on my palette, a little bit of deep orange, and then also some quinacridone burnt orange, so pretty much just a nice range of oranges. And then let's throw on some mud brown there too, and we're going to start working on the ground. Now I'm applying a variety of these tones as a wash, concentrating the darker ones towards the back where the heavier shadows are. Now let's throw in some burnt sienna, and this is going to be used as a base coat for the snake plants. I'm going to apply it to some of the Bromeliads and Monstera too, just to deepen the orange in the shadows. And we might as well throw some dabs on the ground just to increase the tonal variation. And this is the yellow jungle after all, so let's add some golden brown, Hansa yellow, and some white. And then I'm going to start building up the yellow tones on the plants with the golden brown, making sure that I get a nice strong coating. And then going to the highlights, I'm going to concentrate on the inner part of the stems as well as the edges of the leaves. And then in the areas where I want to amp up the saturation, I'm going to take the Hansa yellow and glaze it over top of the highlights. And I kind of like doing it this way because for the stuff at the back, you can skip that glazing step and leave them feeling a little bit more dull, which is going to help them recede into the background. All right, and then we're gonna take a bit more of a vibrant orange, mixing the deep orange and the burnt orange together, and this is gonna get applied to the other bromeliad. I wanted it to be a little bit more vibrant than the snake plants at the back, and I'm also gonna use this on some of the little details in the mossy rocks. Also, now that my washes had dried, this was a good time to add a few highlights to some of the groundwork. But everything's still feeling too much the same, so let's finally bring in some Payne's Gray. This is a beautifully bluish gray color with just the right amount of saturation, pretty low, and this is going to be perfect for those plants underneath the Monstera. So we're applying a base coat first, followed immediately by the highlight, and you can see that these end up looking pretty much black in context next to the yellow, but it does create a beautiful little contrast and really helps to break up the sameness that was going on with the rest of the base. Now you can see that I'm bringing some more vibrancy into the orange on those bromeliads, and then adding some highlights to the edges of the plants to bring it to life a bit more. And then we're just gonna fill in some of the gaps. So I needed to paint the rock on the mossy rocks, and I also decided to add a little bit more of the burnt orange and a little bit more reds towards some of those small orange details on the mossy rock. And I also decided to bring in some stronger yellows on the highlights of some of the moss itself. And I thought that the snake plants were just looking a little bit boring, so I decided to take some of the Payne's Gray and begin fading their tips towards black, and then also adding a little subtle highlight. And I think this just makes them just a tiny bit more interesting than having them all one color. And we are almost there, people. All we gotta do is just add a nice clean black base rim, and our yellow jungle adventure will finally be coming to a close. Nah, you thought I forgot about the green, did you? Well, there's always room for one more color in the delicious soup that is our ground mixture on this base. And I really do think that dabbing on these little spots of green just really adds to the complexity of the colors that are going on this base, and reminds people that, hey, we still came from the jungle. Now, I'm not sure yet what kind of army or color scheme I'd want to pair with this kind of environment, but if you got some ideas, drop them in the comments and we'll see what we can make happen. All right, we did it. Thanks for making it to the end of the video. I hope this process sparked some ideas for how you can take an unconventional paint scheme and redefine a traditional environment. Now, if you need some basing bits for your next project, make sure to go check out epicbasing.com for all the tools you need. And again, please make sure to subscribe to the channel so that we can keep growing and bringing you more hobby tips paired with occasionally cringy humor. Now, until next time, my friends, go make it epic.